But the University of Guelph is one of the best kept secrets. The Food and Agriculture Business Program at the University of Guelph, it's definitely a unique one. It's really the only program on campus that successfully combines the Lang School of Business with the OAC. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. For a lot of the business courses, the typical structure is you'll have a lecture when you're going to walk into the big 400 or 500 person lecture halls, and you have a professor at the front who has a presentation. And then they also have seminar based work, which is usually with a smaller group within the class. So it's usually 30 to 40 students roughly. You get to kind of get a little bit more nitty gritty on some of the topics in class. If you're somebody who hasn't worked a job before, not to fear. The co-op faculty and administration is with you every step of the way. So if you ever need something, you can always reach out. They're always there to help direct you and guide you. But I think that the University of Guelph really offers something unique from that perspective.
Hello everyone, this is Veronica Hislop from Food Grads, and today I am joined by Matthew McKenzie, who is a food and agricultural business student at the University of Guelph. And in this interview, we are going to be diving into all those questions that you want to know about the food and ag business program, like what's it like, what opportunities it offers, and we're going to talk a little bit about co-op experiences and how that can shape your experience, and we're going to go into so much more. So Matthew, thank you so much for being on the show.
Veronica, thanks for having me. I'm very happy to be here. As you mentioned, I am a food and agriculture business student in the co-op program at the University of Guelph. So it's a 5-year program. It's been a very exciting time. And to be honest with you, I'm super excited to share some of my experiences.
I'm excited too as well. So you already did a great little introduction for me. So that was going to be already my first question. But go over again, give us like a broad overview about what this program is and what exactly that entails.
Yeah, so I mean, the Food and Agriculture Business Program at the University of Guelph, it's definitely a unique one. And the reason I say that is because it's really the only program on campus that successfully combines the Lang School of Business with the OAC. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. And because of that, you get a little bit of a taste of the agriculture side of things, which Guelph is, of course, renowned for. It's the #1 ag school in Canada. And then additionally, the Lang School of Business, which is growing rapidly. We've had a lot of recent investment, and the program itself it's really come a long way in terms of its development.
So tell me a little bit more about the Lang School, because I'm familiar with the University of Guelph, but Lang, that's kind of a new term for me. So introduce that a little bit more.
Yeah, so the Gordon S. Lang School of Business, it's one in a million. It's one of the best kept secrets on campus besides the food. But it's full of just profs who are absolute visionaries, individuals who are completely driven, motivated, and people-focused, individuals who really care about their students. There's all kinds of different business programs that fall under the umbrella, like management, economics, and finance, marketing management, so on and so forth. But the one that I'm in is really the only program that combines the OAC into the business school itself, it's pretty sweet.
That sounds pretty sweet. So let's talk about the journey there first. So we'll talk about how you got into this program before we dive really deep into the program. So what inspired you to go into this major at the University of Guelph? Like, what made you choose it over other programs?
Yeah, so I mean, for every student out there, the inspiration behind the program they choose is usually incredibly personal, and for me, it definitely was. So I grew up in a family that owned standardbred racehorses. So my whole life, I was kind of, sort of inducted into the world of agriculture through the standardbred horse racing industry. And additionally, during my time in high school, I always had an aptitude for business. So I enjoyed my accounting classes. I really enjoyed the marketing classes, learning more about the way that businesses function and the economy runs. That was something that always interested me. So for me, it was a really simple decision because it combined my two strong suits, which were, of course, being in the agricultural world and then having an aptitude for business.
Wow. It's nice that you had that experience. You had a touch of it in your own personal life, but it goes to show that with agriculture, you don't have to just go into being a farmer, working out in the fields, like working directly with animals, that there's a lot of other opportunities that someone can go into. And obviously marketing and all those types of things really stood out to you. So what was it that particularly about the University of Guelph that stood out for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I should start by saying I am a Guelph local. And I guess I love the city so much that I decided to stay for 5 more years. But the University of Guelph is, to be honest with you, it's one of the best kept secrets. The campus itself is absolutely gorgeous. All of the food that they serve on campus, it's all locally sourced, it's world class, it's absolutely delicious. The programs are amazing, the faculty is amazing, and to be honest with you, it's one of the best experiences that I've had in terms of being able to connect with professors and faculty members and people in the dean's office. And especially when I hear about some of the experiences that some of my other friends have had at other institutions, they're all good across the board. Canada it's an excellent place to be educated, but I think that the University of Guelph really offers something unique from that perspective.
Okay, wow. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that, and like let's dive about into your program. We say business. To me, that just means like selling things, selling it to one other person, even though in the back of my mind I'm like, I know it's a lot more than just that. So let's talk about your coursework. Let's talk about going from first year to maybe where you currently are. What are some of the specific topics that you cover in your curriculum?
So there's no easy answer to this question because it's broad and it's quite a diverse mix, I would say, of subject matter. So on the business side of things, you're kind of offered all of your typical, like you mentioned, marketing, management, corporate social responsibility, accounting, finance, all that good stuff. So that's all covered under the umbrella. And then where it gets a little bit more niche is you get to really analyze and inspect agriculture markets within Canada and globally. So we're talking about things like commodity trading, right? We're talking about farmers day to day, what their operations looks like. And of course, when people think agriculture, sometimes they can think small and they think about just, the person who's out tilling the fields, planting the seeds, and of course, farming for production. But there's really so much more that goes into it. You could talk about the logistics of it, right? You could talk about the packaging, what you see actually on the shelves at the store, the distribution networks, right? So it really is, it's a multifaceted topic. And the thing about agriculture too is we're always going to have the question, how do you feed the people of the world, right? So this is definitely an industry that's going to outlast any of us. And especially in Canada too, ag is one of our biggest sectors.
Yeah, I mean, that's always why we're here with Food Grads, to show that there's something for everyone in food, and we're here to help you find it, whether it's in business, whether it's in science, whether it's in farming, whether it's in technology. Like, there's so many different sectors that someone could go into within the food industry itself. And, I'm just thinking about, a student who might be like a high school student who might be thinking about going into your program. So is it like the first year very set coursework, like here's very general business courses, or are they like agricultural focused? So taking it a step back, can you just dive into a little bit more about the specifics of coursework, like
For sure.
first year electives, those types of things?
Right. So it's very well structured. It's very well set up. So there's nothing to be intimidated about if you are thinking about entering into the program. I know it's changed a little bit since I first started in terms of what the structure actually looks like, but within your first year, you're kind of diving into predominantly business courses. So it's going to be a lot of like micro and macroeconomics. There's going to be some marketing courses, some management courses, and then you will get a little taste of agriculture in some ag economics courses. So they go a little bit deeper than your traditional microeconomics, and you focus just more on the ag sector within Canada and looking at things like futures and commodity trading, and actually dealing with that kind of side of things.
So in terms of coursework, has there been any like standout favorites for you that you've like really enjoyed during your time in the program?
Yeah, I think that one of my favorites, I took it was a World Hunger and Poverty class, and it was a restricted elective, so it was one that was unique to my program. And I really enjoyed that class. Effectively, one of the big projects that we worked on, it was analyzing crop production across not just Canada, but the entire world, and determining which countries are the most in need, and then actually determining what kind of sustainable solutions you can implement to help improve their situation, right? So that was one that really kind of made you think outside of the borders of Canada and sort of, tap into the mindset of being more considerate to individuals who are less fortunate and who don't have as sustainable of an ag system as we do here in Canada, right? For most people, I would say most Canadians, they go to the grocery store, they shop the flyer deals, they pick a few items up, and there isn't really much thought that goes into it, right? How that food actually gets there, the hardships, whether we had a bad growing season, right? All those things affect the price of food and its availability.
Absolutely. In terms of the growing seasons, like I feel like you don't really notice it as like you might notice a touch of it in terms of like straight produce. I think there was maybe 2 years ago, or if it was the last year, that it was a very rainy season for onions. So there was a lot of issues growing those. And so you might notice it with the produce, but the fact that you can get so many food products in the store that taste so similar year after year, like that is phenomenal to be able to, like, just the ingenuity of being able to do that. It's quite amazing.
100%.
Yeah, and as well, I love that the course that you spoke about is, I love, again, you're in a program that teaches about like the Canadian perspective, agriculture, but it's also acknowledging that there's all these different, like it's an interconnected web in terms of agriculture. So you can't have Canada without another country, and it all plays into one.
Exactly. There is no one size fits all solution, I guess you could say, right? Everything's kind of unique depending on where you are geographically.
Exactly. So with your coursework, are a lot of these like your typical, let's say you do your quizzes, you do your tests, you have your midterm, you have your finals at the end of the semester, or is there is there a lot of hands-on training maybe in these courses? Just give us a better picture of like the diversity of the different styles of courses, I guess you could say.
For sure, yeah, makes sense. For a lot of the business courses, the typical structure is you'll have a lecture during the week. Oftentimes you'll have a seminar too. So your lecture is when you're going to walk into sort of, when you're picturing university, the big 400 or 500 person lecture halls, and you have a professor at the front who has a presentation, and he's just lecturing, right? He's explaining the content, describing the material, you're taking notes. And then they also have seminar based work, which is usually with a smaller group within the class. So it's usually 30 to 40 students roughly. And then that's where you go in, you sit down with your TA, you get to kind of get a little bit more nitty gritty on some of the topics in class. And that's really an excellent opportunity to ask all of the questions and things you need clarification on. Additionally, in those seminars, that's where a lot of the group work happens. And group work is a really big part of university. It's your opportunity and your chance to get out, meet new people, learn what your strengths are, what you're good at, what you like, and what you enjoy. And so that's a typical setup for the actual lecture and seminar side of things. In terms of the schoolwork that you're going to be doing outside of that, oftentimes it'll be weekly quizzes. That's definitely a popular one, which it's not too much burden, relatively straightforward so long as you can plan it out. One recommendation that I would make is taking your syllabus. So your syllabus contains all of your information about your coursework, what you're going to be working on throughout the entirety of the semester. So taking that syllabus and actually putting it into your Outlook calendar to make sure that you're always organized and on top of what's next. And for the actual ag side of things, I find that those classes, because they're a little bit smaller, they won't typically be as big as, for example, microeconomics, because microeconomics is something that every single business student at Guelph will have to take in their first year. So because of that, you have so many more students. But for your ag courses, they're usually a little bit smaller. And so it oftentimes leads to a much deeper in-class discussion. And all of the professors that we have in our department are absolutely amazing. Alphonse Weersink, just to name one, he was spectacular. He was pivotal. I remember meeting him in my second year, and he was teaching an ag economics class. Incredibly interesting guy, very involved in the OAC. And so having the chance to actually meet individuals like that and professors like that, that's what makes the difference in your education.
Well, I can say from being a food science major or molecular science, whatever we want to go with in my own school, like I constantly am very well aware of the high quality professors that you have at your school, like the research that they're doing. It's like the word travels to how well your professors are. And like, I think many of them also, if someone even was curious about hearing them, I do know that I will link it in the show notes. There's a professor that actually does a podcast as well and talks about like the food industry on that side. And he speaks so well. And just, again, taking a step back, it's that word of mouth. And even I know how good the professors are. Like word travels.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, that's the reputation that Guelph wants to have and that we do have, and there's a reason we have that reputation, and there's a reason that word spreads, right?
Absolutely.
When something is, it's not just your job, it's your passion for these professors, it makes all the difference.
Mm-hmm. And there's so many opportunities, and I guess we'll get into that a little bit more about getting involved and like, not just speaking with the professors on like a lecture student level, but there's other opportunities maybe to go in research labs, to volunteer with them during different school programs. Like there's a lot of different opportunities. But you know what? Let's start diving into that, and we'll start diving into campus life, because that is a huge thing. And you kind of mentioned it's the best kept secret. And I know that your school is an agriculture school. I know that you have food science labs. I know that there's just so many things that are related to agriculture that you really can implement into your learning. So tell me more about your campus. Like, what's it like studying at the University of Guelph?
The University of Guelph, I think that's something that should be noted, is that the fall time is my favorite time on campus. Our campus is absolutely packed with wildlife, with beautiful landscapes, beautiful trees. So during that time of the year, it's just, there's something about it that's particularly special as you're kind of walking through the campus. Additionally, I will tell you too, just about the University of Guelph, something that I do enjoy is that no matter where you are on campus, your next class will never be more than a 10 to 15 minute walk, which is quite nice. Some of the other campuses out there, you could be walking for 45, 50 minutes, which in the winter, not so nice. All of the residence buildings on the University of Guelph campus are really nice as well. And we do have world-class facilities too. So our athletic center, the gym in there is amazing. They have basketball courts, rock climbing, all that good stuff. And that's all open to use if you're a student at the University of Guelph. We have swimming pools, ice rinks. And aside from that, I mean, the University Center is where kind of a lot of action goes down. So you have central food courts in there, all kinds of events that go on throughout the semester. It's also home to many great networking events for those of you who are going into co-op programs. But all in all, the university invests a lot of money in their campus in terms of the upkeep and putting up new buildings. And for the actual kind of ag side of things, there is a trail if you visit the University of Guelph. They call it the cow path. And you have to walk down it. When you walk down the trail, you'll see paddocks with horses, cows, all kinds of farm equipment and actual stables for these animals and the livestock, which is something that is incredibly unique that you won't find at any other campus. And so I guess to sum it up, it's really one in a million.
Is there any spots particularly on campus you like to study in? Like those like little spots that are like the place to check out?
For sure, there definitely is. There's quite a few. The science complex has an excellent spot to study. The library, of course, is a very popular choice for many people. They have group study floors, which is great if you're going to work on a project. They also have quiet spaces if you're somebody who prefers to, be in a more secluded environment and get work done solo. For me, myself, being also a business student, I really enjoy the Lang Business School, so McDonald Hall. To be honest with you, it's incredibly modern. They've renovated the entire inside, and there's a lot of very nice, comfortable study spaces. So those are definitely my top three.
That would sound like some really good places. I've been to your library. Like I'm not even a student there, and it was like I gotta go study in there for a bit. So I had an event one time, and I just like came a little early. And I know as a university student, there is the access of like internet, so you're actually able to roam once you're a university student, which is a nice little thing for people to know. If you go to like McMaster, or if you go to University of Toronto, or if you go to Ryerson, the Wi-Fi's actually do work. So that is a good little
100%.
tip for someone.
100%.
But going back to the library, like seeing the stacks of books and seeing the knowledge, and like I have been at your campus during the fall time and seeing the leaves as well as they're falling down. It's like the things you see in movies. Honestly, it's really beautiful.
That's exactly, you took the words right out of my mouth. That is exactly what I was trying to describe. It's like being in a movie when you walk through campus at fall time. In the library too, it's awesome. You can go in. They've just revamped it. There's a whole new entrance that they've built out, and you can easily walk in, grab a coffee, sit down, get to work. It's an excellent spot.
So one of the things, Matthew, that you kind of mentioned earlier in the conversation that you sounded really excited about was, if I'm not mistaken, JDCC. Like you talked, like your face kind of was very excited to talk about this, and it sounds like you've had like a really good experience with it. Let's talk more about it, because it seems like it's been like a really important aspect of your university career. So tell us more about that and how that shaped who you are as a student.
For sure, yeah. So outside of my classes, outside of my co-op experience, JDCC has been, as you mentioned, it's been pivotal in my experience. It's helped me grow a lot as an individual. And I mentioned earlier, the way that I got involved with it was through my TA in Management 1000 when I was in first year. And so I got to compete in all these different delegate groups. So in my first year doing JDCC, I was on an entrepreneurship team where they would effectively provide us a case that's focused on entrepreneurship, and we would either present a business idea or help solve a challenge that a new entrepreneur is having in starting their business, and we would pitch that to a panel of judges. I also competed on an international business team, so getting to actually apply some of my knowledge from my ag classes. There were actually many ag cases, and so looking at markets outside of Canada and the international trade that goes on between countries, incredibly interesting. And then this year again, I was back on entrepreneurship, and it was more of a Dragon's Den style. So you go in and you make your ask. We're here today asking for 25% in exchange for X amount of equity, and you pitch a product or a service that you come up with in 3 hours. So it's incredibly interesting. But through this organization, I got to meet so many different mentors. So we have coaches, we have faculty members, and the coaches are usually external individuals. So people who are in industry, who actually take time out of their day to come and coach a team. So they sort of give you a real glance into what kind of opportunities are out there. And I actually have many friends and peers who have gotten jobs from their coaches on JDCC. Additionally, I got the chance to really get to know Kathleen Rodberg, who is the individual who kind of kickstarted Management 1000 and oversaw it all these years. She's now since moved into the dean's office, but it was through Kathleen that I was actually invited to do a prerequisite class to be a teaching assistant for Management 1000. So a bit of a full circle moment there. So yeah, her Management 3030 class was one of the most interesting classes that I've taken. And the reason is because it gets you outside of the traditional cut and dry elements of a classroom. So it has a really big focus on experiential learning. So when you go in, you're there in person, you're taking it all in. It's almost a 3-hour class, which sounds like a long time, but to be honest with you, it flies by. And they teach you real life skills. They let you analyze your own personality traits, help you understand, how you work with others and what kind of needs you might have when you're in a group setting. They teach you how to facilitate courses, etc. And so after I did that prerequisite course, I was invited to teach my own seminar in Management 1000 this past year, which was, to be honest with you, it really put a smile on my face, being able to step back in that classroom where this all started for me, and offer that same experience to a class of almost 50 students. So Management 1000 has a really big focus on your introductory business frameworks. So the entire course, what you're focusing on is you're assigned a company, and you learn how to analyze every single part of that company. So you're looking at things like political factors, socioeconomic, environmental factors, technological factors, all of the things in the real world that affect day-to-day operations of the business you're assigned. You also get the chance to dive into financials, so understanding their annual reports, their balance sheets, their income statements. And so nonetheless, the whole point of the course is that at the end of the semester, once you have a thorough understanding of your business, who their target market is, their financials, what their strengths are, where they operate in the world, it all comes together into what's called the Great Ethical Dilemma. So the Great Ethical Dilemma is a case competition that's offered at the end of this course. It's a mandatory part of this course. And effectively what they do is they give you a business case, and they present you with an ethical challenge related to your business that you get to actually take all of the knowledge that you've learned over the span of the semester and apply to solve this case. So when I just freshly taught this course, there was 27 seminars. So there was 26 other TAs just like myself. And effectively what you're doing is you are competing with your group. So it's a group of usually about 5 people. And so let's say you're assigned Kellogg's. Okay, so your group of 5 will be learning about Kellogg's. You'll be given the ethical dilemma, and then you're going to be competing against the Kellogg's group in every other seminar. So you're going to have all these different competitors out there, and you're really racing to provide the best solution based on what you've learned throughout the course of the semester. So it's an incredibly interesting course, and I think that's a really big one for a lot of first year business students.
That sounds like a really cool experience. Like it's this like you're doing this teamwork, you're talking, you're getting together. You might not agree with the same thing of someone on your team, but you still got to figure out like how are we going to come together and like put us together to make it seem like we're all on the same page. And it really that is the dynamics of business in the business world. And I can imagine that reflects, and you've seen this type of stuff in your co-op or, in the working world, that not everyone's going to agree on something. You have only a certain amount of information available. There's no right or wrong answer per se, because the world doesn't have right or wrong answers all the time.
100%. And I mean, like, you really want to surround yourself with diversity, because you're going to have your own strengths and your own skill sets. And it's up to you to find people who complement those, right? That's the reason we work in groups and we have teams, is because where you may lack, somebody else might pick that up, right? And they may really excel in that kind of element of the team setting. So I think that from a fundamentals perspective and building a foundation, Management 1000 does an excellent job of doing that for students and getting them comfortable in the university setting and experiencing group work.
I just love how, again, it's that full circle moment. You're able to go, you're a student at the beginning, and now you're teaching a seminar there, and you can probably see yourself in the position of the students and just seeing how you've grown. And like, that would feel pretty good to be able to actually like teach someone what you've learned.
To be honest with you, it's the best feeling in the world. And to be honest with you, like, when I actually got in front of my seminar, I almost felt like I owed my students the same experience that I was afforded in my first year, because the experience that I got out of Management 1000 and getting me involved in JDCC and all my other extracurriculars, like I said, it was a game changer for me, right? It really let me excel amongst my peers, and it really got me ahead, and it gave me the opportunity to meet faculty and to meet mentors and to meet industry professionals. So being able to offer that same experience to students who were in the position that I was in not so long ago was incredibly touching.
Well, moving on to the community side of it, because of course being in a physical space is so important when it comes to being effective in your studies. But of course, one of the things that University of Guelph stands out with is that it has networking events, like you've mentioned. You've mentioned to me that you've been in clubs, like you've done so many different extracurricular activities. So let's start to dive a little bit deeper into that. So Matthew, tell me a little bit about some of the extracurriculars that you're involved in and what's available for students on campus.
Yeah, okay, so this is definitely one of my favorite topics for sure, because there is so many things to get involved in. And I really think that for people who are going to university or post-secondary for the first time, it's important to get involved. That's what gives you a leg up, and that's what helps you find your friend group and really discover who you are as a person. So I remember when I started in first year, I started simple. I was doing intramural sports. So something that's cool about the University of Guelph is you can play intramural hockey, volleyball, mixed sport, dodgeball. There's all these different sports you can choose from. It's a great chance to get out, exercise, and meet all kinds of friends who will be on your team. So I'd highly encourage that if you're an athletic individual. Aside from that, we have all kinds of organizations on campus. So we have, the Guelph Consulting Group. We have JDCC Lang, which I'm a part of. That's a case competition team. We have the Accounting Association, the Central Student Association, the Lang Student Association, and there's so many more to name. I couldn't name them all, but they're all great opportunities to get involved with the university, meet faculty, meet professors, meet people in the dean's office, but most importantly, make friends that you're going to have for the rest of your life. And additionally, these all look excellent on your resume. They're great things to put on there. They give you real world experience, and they actually let you apply some of the theory and concepts that you learn about in the classroom.
So tell me, how did you actually, for a lot of students, I could imagine like it's kind of scary getting involved in clubs, like just because it's university, like you've never done any of these different types of things before. So what maybe as you're in your fourth year, you just go and do, and it's not that difficult. But when you're new, like that's scary. So how do you actually find out about these opportunities, and do you just show up? Do you have to have prerequisites in order to do it? Like to walk us through a little bit about that.
For sure, yeah. I mean, in terms of prerequisites, there typically isn't too many that you need for a lot of these clubs. Sometimes they will be restricted to, for example, JDCC Lang is you have to be a part of the business school to be a part of the club. So you will have kind of some stipulations on that front. In terms of getting involved, you can reach out to your program counselors. If you're in co-op, you can reach out to your co-op counselors. Professors are great resources to talk to as well to find out about more clubs, particularly if you're interested in a certain subject area or subject matter. There may actually be a club that is directly linked, and so professors are a great avenue to get involved that way. For me, JDCC was which stands for Jus de Commerce Central, I should note as well. But it's a business case competition team, and the way that I got involved with that is in my first year I took a class called Management 1000. So that's Introduction to Business, and I had a TA, so a student, an upper year student who led our seminar, and they watched me give a few presentations, do a few keynotes, and they thought that I could be a good fit for this club and this organization. I could kind of help carry out the vision and help it grow once they're all done at the University of Guelph. So I took their word on it. I did the application process. I interviewed, and I ended up getting a position on the team. And to be honest with you, I think that really set me apart amongst a lot of my peers because it gave me a chance to get out there, gave me a chance to meet people. And in terms of my public speaking ability, putting together presentations, and general networking around campus, it was paramount in my experience. And to the individuals who feel nervous about getting involved, especially in first year, the thing that you need to remember is that every single person on campus who's in first year is in the exact same boat as you, right? They're no further ahead and no further behind. Everybody it's a level playing field. So if you're feeling nervous, talk to your friends and talk to your peers and use your resources, because at the end of the day, everybody's looking for some kind of common ground and everybody's looking to get involved. So don't be nervous. Take a leap of faith and take a step forward. And you know what? Sometimes the most development and the most growth happens when you actually take the chance and you step outside of your comfort zone.
I think that's really good advice, Matthew. I think that it's the first year, everything seems so big, everything's so new, but everyone's just figuring it out. And you know what? At least you tried, and maybe it didn't work out, maybe because you just didn't like it, and that's okay. But now you have something that you've explored. You've maybe even made friends in the process. You've learned something about yourself. And you also pointed out about your TA reached out to you. And I think that's something I also want to kind of draw attention to, is that many of these TAs have gone through what you've gone through, or they know professors, they've been through these experiences, and they might know things that you might not, like places to go. So you're likely going to be talking to them on a weekly basis for some kind of course. Just say hi, see if there's anything they might know about. And, you might also gain a mentor. Who knows? You never know where it's going to take you.
100%, yeah. Challenge yourself, get out there, step outside of your comfort zone. It's okay to get involved. And something else that's important to note too is that when you go into first year, to be completely honest with you, a lot of the best learning comes from the mistakes that you're going to make. And everybody's going to make mistakes. University and this time in your life is the best opportunity to make mistakes because you're growing and you're developing and you're learning. So, you know what? If you're somebody too who isn't sure what your passion might be, right? So maybe you're looking at all these organizations and these clubs and these groups and you're just not sure what you're passionate about. Many of my passions today I didn't know existed 4 years ago. So your passion, if you haven't found it yet, it's out there waiting for you. And all it takes is you to take a step forward and just try it. And you know what? If you pick something up and you don't like it, as you said, Veronica, at least you tried, and you can always move on to something else. There's no shame in that.
And I think that's actually a perfect segue to talk about co-op experiences, because I feel co-op is this perfect time in your life where it's not very often that you're going to get 4 months to try out something of a job and see, does it fit? Do you enjoy it? And I know that you've had a lot of wonderful experiences, Matthew, with co-op, and you're also, if I'm not mistaken, doing one right now. So you could have a lot. There we go. So you have a lot that you can talk about. So why don't you talk about the co-op experience with the University of Guelph? So before we go into the actual experiences, let's talk about just how you got there. So I know some schools require, you don't go into the co-op program when you first get into it. You have to apply within, maybe I'm jumping ahead, but tell us a little bit more about how you got into the co-op program and grades and those types of things, and then we can start to talk more about co-op.
For sure, yeah. So, I mean, for me, myself, the way that it kind of worked is I did the standard application process when I was at the tail end of high school, and I had applied to food and agriculture business with the co-op. So I ended up getting in to this program with the co-op right out of the gate. Now, if you don't get into a program that is eligible for co-op, you can always reapply for that and see if you can get co-op later down the line. Also, if you do start a program and you get in with co-op and turns out it's not for you, you can always drop it as well, like the actual co-op element, right? So you can go back to the standard 4-year degree. So that's something that's important to note. And then moving forward, talking about kind of my first co-op placement and how that sort of came to be. For me, and you know what, I should note too, the way that it works at the University of Guelph is they support you in your job search. So they have this awesome portal. It's called Experience Guelph, and when you go on there, it's almost like a job board. So kind of like an Indeed, I suppose you could compare it to. So you get to go on, and the jobs that you can find on there they're all relevant to the degree program that you're in. So for me, I got to kind of see a lot of ag business jobs, and that's pretty diverse. So there's all kinds of stuff out there. Agriculture is somehow interwoven into everything, is what I've learned. So it's incredibly interesting. But they support you with that. They provide you access to the portal. We have excellent co-op advisors. Her name is Sarah Goody, and she is absolutely lovely. She's been just pivotal in my entire experience over the last 4 years, helping me with my placements, providing direction, guidance, and I know that she's always a resource for me. So reach out to these people and use them. They are absolutely lovely, and they're just here to help, which is awesome. So, but yeah, so and for my first co-op job, I worked at Conestoga Meat Packers. The way that I found the job is I actually went to a job fair event on campus, which was in the University Center. So they do this pretty frequently throughout the school year. And usually what it consists of is you show up and they have all these booths set up with different organizations and different companies who are maybe local to Guelph. They could be outside of the city. And it's a chance for you to go and meet these recruiters, learn more about their businesses, what kind of positions they're hiring for. And for me, I'd walked up to the booth. I met Samantha Harrington, and she was absolutely lovely. We hit it off. We were talking about Conestoga, what they do. They were a pork production facility. So they operated a cut and kill floor. I worked on the sales and new business development team there. So my role at Conestoga kind of consisted of dealing with traders, distributors, wholesalers, suppliers. I was running analysis for our sales and new business development team, which was incredibly interesting. And it really just gave me like a head first dive into the ag sector and what it really looks like. You learn a lot of theory when you're in school. And then the nice part about co-op is that you actually get the chance to apply some of your knowledge outside of the classroom, which is phenomenal experience.
That's amazing. And I like how you pointed out the different methods that someone could find a co-op position. There's the typical applying online, of course, your job, of course, the University of Guelph, they do a very good job in finding employers that would like to put jobs on the portal, but you also pointed out job fairs. And I think that's something that someone should definitely use the opportunity. Like, you're already at campus. There's all these amazing individuals from all these different businesses, and they're looking to hire. So it's the perfect opportunity and it clearly worked for you.
It certainly did. And you know what? Guelph students have a phenomenal reputation at all the organizations that we get hired at. We're very hard workers. We're very dedicated. We're very driven. So I know that many organizations, when they hear, you are a University of Guelph student, particularly in ag, because that's one of, our most well-known traits, it's a big leg up over the competition out there. So it's definitely something that should be well noted.
You've done your first co-op, and then throughout that process, how was the university involved in terms of the actual co-op? I know that some schools, they do little visits that they'll go and check in on you during it. Was that something that happened with you, or how did University of Guelph help support that as a course?
Yes, absolutely. So your co-op advisor, so for me, as I mentioned, Sarah, the way that it works is while you're on your co-op term, they'll do check-ins. So usually it's on a set schedule. So for example, if you're doing, a 4-month term, they might check in maybe around the first quarter to halfway, and then again towards the end. And they're asking questions. How are you finding it? Is the role well suited for you? Are you feeling at home with your colleagues? So they're really just doing a check-in. They're making sure you're enjoying the role and that you're gaining valuable experience out of it. So that's a really positive thing that they do. They also do evaluations. So you get the chance at the end of your term to evaluate your employer and provide feedback on how they treated you, and the work that you were actually doing and the projects. And then additionally, they also have little projects that you complete towards the end of your term. So for example, after my first work term, I had to complete, it was an infographic, and it was basically to educate other co-op students and the faculty and administration about Conestoga Meat Packers, what sorts of projects I worked on there, what I learned while I was doing my placement. And so I think that that's a really kind of good indication of where some of the better jobs lie, is actually talking to these students and learning from the reflections that they're writing and whatever else. So for that one, it was an infographic. There's also a presentation that has to be done at some point, as well as a written report. So they space it out depending on what term you're on. So the first one's the infographic presentation and then the written report. And that does change depending on which program you're in, but for me, that's the structure of it. But yeah, the check-ins definitely help.
It sounds like it. I like that they're involved with your co-op. They don't just leave you off on your own because, again, going from school, then you're in your co-op, and then that can be a little bit of a scary experience if someone hasn't had the opportunity to, work part-time during high school or work part-time during school to actually go out in the workplace, that you might potentially actually work for that employer after when you're done, because that does happen.
100%. And you know what? I think that for a lot of students going into the co-op program, that is the vision. Ideally, like the perfect storm is, you find a co-op employer that you feel so at home with, and they've helped you develop and grow, and they've showed you what the succession plan looks like. So by the time, you finish your degree at the University of Guelph, you have a job to get into right out of the gate, which is a really nice feeling to have something secure and have something locked down. Also, working a co-op job, not only does it build your resume, it also helps you, of course. You can make a little bit of money while you're in school, which is great. It kind of helps by the time you get back into your semester, cover some of your expenses. I know that's really valuable for a lot of students out there. But like you said, Veronica, if you're somebody who hasn't worked a job before, not to fear. The co-op faculty and administration is with you every step of the way. So if you ever need something, you can always reach out. They're always there to help direct you and guide you.
That's really good information to know, because I know it can be a little scary going into that first step. So having that additional support is really good. And talking about, so again, you mentioned you're in another co-op position right now. So tell me a little bit more about that transition. So you finished your first co-op position, which I assume would have been during the summer. You went back into school, or what did your work study terms look like?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that first placement that I worked, it initially started as a 4-month term. So Conestoga had signed me on for 4 months, and I really enjoyed it. There was an excellent experience. The team there was great. Terry Cox, who was my direct manager, she was excellent. Pardon me. She was excellent. And so basically what had happened for me is after I was there for about 2 to 3 months, they offered me an extension. And based on the structure of my degree program, I was able to do a full 8-month chunk. So my 4-month placement turned into 8 months, and I stayed at Conestoga the whole time. It was a phenomenal experience. And then afterwards, I went back into school, into my regular semester. And then the following summer, I had started another placement, and that was just a 4-month chunk, and then back into school.
Okay, so you did like a full year, and then I guess you went back to do your study terms, and then I guess now you're rounding it out with your final, I guess it would be 4th work term, if I'm not mistaken, or am I doing the math right?
My 4th and 5th, yeah.
Okay, wow, congratulations. That's
Thank you very much.
Yeah, to go through co-op, I did it myself. I loved it. I kind of did what you did. I was only signing on for 4 months, but then another department in the same place was hiring, and I really loved where I was working. And I was like, I want to keep working for you. So I actually did the full year, the 12 months at one time. So it did shift my academic year. But I mean, if you're loving what you're doing, it's such a great opportunity.
100%. And then I will say too, so the co-op placement that I have now, it is absolutely phenomenal. My employer, I nominated them after my last work term as Co-op Employer of the Year, and they've won the award. So there's going to be an award ceremony coming up where they're going to be, given the trophy, and they're going to be able to actually receive the recognition on stage in front of our faculty, in front of other businesses in the area, which is amazing. But the way that I found that job, and I just want to bring this up, I think it's incredibly important. I competed in a case competition. So once again, interwoven with the business school, it was an EDI pitch competition. So equity, diversity, and inclusion. And we were given a presentation on accessibility in Canadian sport. So we had effectively put together a full plan to provide funding to underprivileged youth, to get them involved in summer league soccer. And while I was giving my presentation, my group was exceptional. Everybody was very talented. There was a couple in the audience, and they were making eye contact with me, very involved. And I said to myself, I said, you know what? After I'm done this presentation, I need to go and meet them. So presentation wrapped up, everything went well. We shook hands with the judges, and I went right over and I introduced myself. I said, hi, I'm Matt McKenzie. I could tell you were really involved in the presentation. Just wanted to, extend a handshake and say hello. And so it turned out we started talking about a few more kind of ideas behind our presentation, our solution, which was almost an impromptu interview. And at the end of it, I got a tap on the shoulder and they said, hey, what are you doing this summer? And I said, actually, I'm looking for a co-op placement. And so from that conversation, I successfully found myself in a position with the Wellington Group of Companies, which is a multinational transportation company. So they do everything from trucking to ocean freight to air freight to rail, small parcel delivery, and warehousing. So it's a full service logistics company.
Wow. So you've done the suite, like you've done the, you've checked out the university website in order to find a job, although you didn't go through that one. You went to a job fair, and then you just did the word of mouth. Like you kind of explored all the different options, and it goes to show about you never know where your next job could be. And like you showed off, they were happy with it, and you took the opportunity. It would have been maybe much different had you not, networked and said hi right after that little thing.
And I think that is it's a critical element of being in university. It's using this opportunity to meet these individuals and to develop your network and grow. LinkedIn is a great thing to have if you're just getting into university. You probably may not have that set up yet. Set it up once you get into first year. It's really going to help you a lot, especially with professors. If you meet somebody who really makes a big impact on you, you can connect with them through that platform and continue to grow your relationship and keep up to date with them and what they have going on in their life.
Absolutely. And let's take it to the future now. So we've talked about co-op, we've talked about the program that you're in, but like when you graduate, like, you know what, actually, let's take it back a little bit more with the co-op and we'll extend it, talking about perspectives. And like, how has your perspectives of maybe food and agriculture, like how have you changed since you've done your co-op programs?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been pretty pivotal in my development. Conestoga, of course, that was more sort of directly focused on the ag sector. So really understanding the business behind it, how they make those sales, what kind of markets they sell into, who's buying their commodities. So that was incredibly interesting. And then the placement that I'm working now with Wellington, it's really changed my perspective a lot because now I'm actually on the other side of it. So like we talked about before, when we said that, your average Canadian goes in the grocery store and they buy something off the shelf and they don't put much thought into what went into the process to get those products there. I am now handling the element of things, the transportation side, where we're actually making that happen, and our farmers have done an excellent job. They've created the product, it's been manufactured, and now we're doing the delivery, right? So we handle it all the way through. So from your raw ingredients that are coming off the field, taking that to the production facility, moving it from the production facility to a warehouse, onto another truck, maybe it's going into an ocean container, maybe it's even moving by air, and then finally reaching its end destination. Additionally, something that's big for us, we have our own asset fleet of trucks. They're all 5 years or newer, they're exceptional, and we have reefer units as well. So reefer units are refrigerated trucks. So we do a lot of business for very large scale producers in the ag sector. So it's been really interesting to see how the actual network works for their distribution. And then additionally, we do warehousing as well for food and beverage. So we have a BRG certification, which is, to be completely honest with you, it's the top certification you can get of all the warehousing certifications. And it's because it's so stringent in the policy in terms of what your warehouse needs to look like, how it needs to operate. And so that's been incredibly interesting to learn more about that and see our customers and the success that they're having using our warehouse facilities. So for me, it's really changed my perspective from the sense that it's opened my horizons and it's broadened my vision to the industry as a whole.
Okay, and touching upon that now, looking to the future. Someone who graduates from your program, what jobs where can it take them?
To be honest with you, I would say that the sky is the limit. As I've kind of mentioned, agriculture, it's really heavily interwoven into so many different industries. And particularly in Canada, you're in one of the best countries to be pursuing a degree in agriculture because it's one of our largest sectors. So there's all kinds of jobs available. And even for those of you, as I mentioned, who are trying to find your passion, you're considering agriculture, if you haven't found it yet, it's probably out there waiting for you. And it's just going to take a step into the world to see what's out there. I would highly encourage anybody who's, considering this program, maybe take a look at some of the jobs that are out there right now and just start seeing what kind of companies are operating within the space, what kind of positions are available. And that's going to help you, really make decisions in terms of what degree you want to do. But I would say looking into the future, it's something that's really in demand, being in agriculture. And even logistics, for example, most people wouldn't think that would be something you would go into coming out of food and agriculture business. But the reality is it's heavily interwoven, right? And there is a lot of opportunity out of this program.
It sounds like it, Matthew, with everything that you've spoken about. You've touched upon a lot of different areas. You've done co-op experiences. You've done many different courses that touch into all these different areas. And I think that this program sounds, fact of the matter, sounds awesome. It sounds like a great place to be. It sounds like a place where someone can grow. They have the facilities, they have the support from the university, they have the amazing professors. It just sounds like a great place to be. And I think that I am going to leave it at that, Matthew. Thank you so much for coming on to this show and sharing us more about what you do as a food and agricultural business student at the University of Guelph. It sounds like you've had a wonderful program, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it takes you in the future.
Thank you so much, Veronica. Thanks for having me.